Today, we are going to talk about gold prices and what I believe is the best gold mining company to invest in 2024 and beyond. Joining me today to discuss these topics are Alastair, CEO of Gold Mining Inc., and Maria Mejia, Director as well at Gold Mining Inc., and responsible for the success of the Colombian districts, which we will turn to Spanish at that moment. So watch until the end. So welcome both for coming to the show. How are you today?
We're very well. Thanks for having us on today. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Pleasure to be here.
Well, as I today is a great day to talk about gold as it approaches to break the historic all-time high levels. So first, why don't we start there? Opinion on gold prices today? Where are we heading? And maybe you can relate it to gold mining strategy of buying low, sell high.
It's a great question, and we certainly are seeing a very interesting market for gold. And what I would point out is that we're seeing all-time highs or very near all-time highs. We've passed through what seemed to be a barrier for the price, which was $2,000 per ounce. I think now that we've passed that barrier, there's some runway for the price to go higher. But we have to look at why it's moving that direction. And I think there's a couple of key fundamental reasons. One is the geopolitical instability around the globe. That always has seemed to be a driver as people seek a safe haven in gold. We've seen tensions in the Middle East. We've seen tensions in Eastern Europe, and we've seen other conditions elsewhere which may be boiling over. So in times of political uncertainty, gold has actually for millennia been the safe haven for investors. And I think we see some of that now and going forward. But more importantly, I think we've also seen a fundamental shift in the mindset of some of the largest financial institutions and banks in the world, namely the Fed from the US. And the Fed has recently made a very demonstrated and market turn from comments about rising interest rates or holding interest rates to try and tame inflation. They've now seen and messaged that we think inflation may be under control, and that signals an opportunity to reduce interest rates going forward. That seems to have been a particular catalyst for the price of gold, and we've seen some recent price rises because of that. And I think in all of these situations where we relate this back to Gold Mining Inc., we're a company, we're not in production right now, but we have a number of development assets throughout the Americas. And we have traditionally had a very high leverage to the price of gold. We have a very resource-rich portfolio, some 13 million gold equivalent ounces measured and indicated, and another 10 million ounces gold equivalent ounces inferred. And that large resource portfolio in good stable jurisdictions in the Americas gives us a great leverage to the price of gold. And I think that has set up our investors in the past to have had good returns when the price of gold moves. And I see that again now. The other thing I would point out, there has been a little bit of a market disconnect. And there's a bit of a delay between sentiment for investing in gold equities and the price of gold. And it's often hard to remind ourselves. We've seen some depressed investment pricing on the equities, and then we're seeing a $2,000 gold price. There seems to have been a disconnect there, but I think that disconnect really creates opportunity for investors because the fundamentals for the price are there, and gold mining provides a tremendous leverage to the price of gold.
Exactly, that's what is happening right now in the market. The gold price is almost in 2000, and the companies are 50% below, or in other cases, 70% below of the all-time highs. For everyone to be on the same page, I think I can share the screen. This is the company that we are going to talk about in specific today. The company is Gold Mining Inc. It trades on the New York Stock Exchange, approximately $1 per share. And for example, I'm a big investor in this company for 5 years already, so big long-term shareholder. I personally have my own price target put on almost $11 per ounce. So maybe we can today figure out why it's a good investment or not. Depends on how we value this company. So maybe we can find a way for investors to understand the value proposition that that Gold Mining Inc. has, maybe at what value it trades today, and maybe then we can talk a little bit about each specific project, and maybe you can start with this Excel, and we can move from this, right?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that we think about when we talk about resource companies is what is the value the market places on the resources that they have. And a common metric has been to look at an enterprise value per resource ounce. And really what that is looking at the company's financial position or market cap. And you can take away the cash on hand and to say, what is the market valuing resources the company has? I would start the discussion by saying, when looking at the assets that gold mining has, gold mining has a rather unique position that it has a very strong position of cash and equity holdings that give it a strong a balance sheet. And that balance sheet and that those equities are namely in two significant companies. Gold Royalty Corporation. This was a company that was created 2.5 years ago. It was launched on the New York Stock Exchange from royalties that were written on projects within the Gold Mining Inc. portfolio. So that launch itself, which raised $90 million, was an endorsement of the assets within our portfolio. The value of our shares that Gold Mining currently owns, we have over 21 million shares. And you can do the quick math that the price of Gold Royalty, which trades on, again, the New York Stock Exchange, American. This is the important listing. It's not a small exchange; it's a major exchange, and with the price US dollars of approaching 145 to 150 per ounce at the time of we're recording this, you can see the value that we have in those shares. Those 21 million shares is about $30 million. And that's good tangible value as a marketable security we have in our balance sheet. The second major component that we have in value on our marketable securities is a company called US Gold Mining Inc. And that's a new company that was created earlier in 2023. It trades on the NASDAQ Stock Exchange in the US. So again, a significant major listing. This was a company created earlier this year to advance the Whistler project in Alaska, a large resource of gold and copper that's being advanced, and it was drilled this year. And it's in a jurisdiction where there's a lot of attention from majors and intermediate producers looking for significant projects. The US in particular is trying to be self-sufficient in their natural resources. So deposits of gold and copper that occur on American soil are becoming increasingly scarce and increasingly sought after. So that company was launched publicly, and Gold Mining Inc. Owns about 80% of the shares in that company. So we have close to 10 million shares. It's about 9.8 million shares in that company. So you can see the value that would create for us as a marketable security. In addition to cash on the balance sheet.
Is it possible that we stop a little bit on the Whistler project because it has a lot of value in the balance sheet that you have crystallized? But how can investors look at almost 10 million ounces in the ground? And it's important to note that in the coming weeks, you are going to post some drill results. And for December of 2024, you want to put a PA in place. So what's the plan moving forward for Whistler? And do you believe that there is more value to be crystallized on that project alone?
Yeah, absolutely. And the reason why Whistler was put into its own company and launched publicly was so it could get its own dedicated management team. We've assembled a very qualified and experienced board of directors to manage the company. And we were able to launch that company with an IPO, and it raised some $20 million. That means that shareholders of Gold Mining Inc. get full exposure to that company. The company owns 80% of the shares in that. So a rise in the price of shares of US Gold Mining is good for the parent company, Gold Mining, and our shareholders. That's why we did it. We can have a dedicated team exploring it, advancing it without diluting our own shares to raise money to explore it. It can be done by a standalone company, and we've assembled an exceptional team to do that. we acquired Tim Smith, who was the Director of Exploration North America for Newmont, the world's largest gold mining company. We were able to recruit him and bring him to work on our team last year. And to me, that's a very strong indication that when we can recruit an experienced geologist who's had tremendous success and led a discovery in the Yukon adjacent to Alaska a number of years ago, which was sold to Goldcorp for some $500 million, we can recruit an experienced geologist from the world's largest gold mining company to come work for our team and is excited about our projects. I think that itself is a very strong endorsement of what not only we feel about the project, but also is echoed by the support the market gave us when we launched the IPO earlier in 2023.
Yep, this is a great project. It's fun because Gold Mining Inc., the management team, we could argue that it's like an spin out of Newmont, because a lot of people from Newmont has come to work for Gold Mining Inc. So yeah, this is a great indication, right?
In fact, that's right. That was my background. I'd spent almost 25 years working for major operators and producers, likes of Kinross and Goldcorp, and Goldcorp was eventually taken over by Newmont, and I had the pleasure of working for those larger organizations, and I know their expectations, I know their standards, I know the qualities they demand, and that's the same standards we want to employ on our projects. And when I had the opportunity to come to work for Gold Mining a couple of years ago now, I saw a tremendous opportunity of a portfolio of assets that had been assembled at very opportune times, downturns in the cycle, moments when the gold price was low, and it assembled great assets at great value, but really hadn't taken the next stage, which was harvesting those assets, exploring them, advancing them, finding joint venture partners. That's the path we're on now to unlock value for our shareholders.
Exactly. And maybe we can touch a little bit of the last company that you have on your balance sheet. Even though it's small right now, it's a non-core project that you have, that you bought, I think it was for less than 1 million, and you spin it out for 16 million. So maybe we can talk a little about the last part of the company.
Exactly. The last sort of significant holdings of a marketable security on our balance sheet is shares we own in Nevgold Corporation. Currently, our ownership is about 22% in that company. And you're right, this was a project. We had our Almaden project. It was in Idaho. It was a relatively small project in our portfolio. At the time, it was about 3% of our resource base, so a very small component. It likely wasn't to see near-term activity by our team, and we were focusing activities elsewhere. But we saw an opportunity because Nevgold was exploring in nearby Nevada, immediately adjacent to Idaho. They had an experienced local team and wanted to have a project they could drill. So we brought them in as a partner. We formed an option agreement, and they're earning in on that property. And the beauty for us is that we see the project advanced with money they're investing in it. We have a strong equity position in the company, which we stand to see the benefits should they make exploration discoveries. And in fact, that is what they've done. They announced a new resource, a mineral resource, just this past July. They showed an increase in resources with their drilling. That was a great success. But I would point out that this part of Idaho is seeing some of the most active mining interest that we've seen in a long time in our industry. There was a significant discovery made to the north of us by a company called Hercules Silver. That has caused a major staking rush in the state. Companies are scrambling to acquire land positions. And while we can't say that we're directly related to that deposit, it's brought a lot of eyes and attentions into the state. I know Nevgold are also looking to possibly expand their land position because this is a growing district. There's been a major discovery made, say, by Hercules Silver, and that's casting a lot of eyes onto the opportunity that we've created there, working in partnership with Nevgold.
Yeah, exactly. The Hercules Silver story is a great one. If it's adjacent to the project, it's great to have. Well, this was the three projects that Gold Mining Inc. has on their balance sheet. Returning to the Excel for one last part, is that the company is valued in the market for around 50 million US dollars, and the company still has a lot of other projects that we are going to start talking about now. So they have 23 million ounces. So the remaining ounces are only $2 per ounce, when comparable resource projects, they trade multiples of that. So can we talk a little bit about the prices that companies pay before starting talking about the specific projects? Just because mergers and acquisition are start to picking up again. Can we have a little bit of pictures on that?
Yeah, so I guess maybe just to clarify, first of all, the ounces that we have are gold equivalent ounces. So there's a small component of copper that we report on our resource, but we're about 80% by content gold. And it's broken into measured, indicated, again, which is about 13.4 million ounces, and inferred about 9.9 million ounces. But what I would also say is that when we're looking at the assets of the company, an important thing to note here is there's no debt. The company had a margin loan over the past 2 years, which was with the BMO, the Bank of Montreal, one of the largest banks in Canada. That was a good sign that we had access to capital, but we were prudent in rising interest rate times. We were able to completely pay off that facility. So the company also has no debt, which is an important factor, gives us a lot of flexibility and strength going forward. What I would say about calculations that some in the industry use to look at an enterprise value, which is a market cap less cash and other securities to calculate enterprise value, and divided by the resource ounces, it's a good benchmarking number. There's no specific science to it, but what I would say is that if you look at any basket of comparables of similar projects or even projects slightly more advanced, they all have much more significant enterprise value per resource ounce than gold mining has. That to me speaks to the value play for shareholders. That means that the assets within our portfolio are not seeing full market attention, and we think they're undervalued, hence creating an opportunity for our shareholders. And I give an example of a recent acquisition. This is when the majors, we're in a time now when the major producers have for some 10 years now not been able to replace their reserves through exploration activity. So we've seen a significant decline overall amongst the global major producers, declining reserves of some close to 40% over a 10-year period. And so that means that projects coming through their pipeline are not sufficient to meet up with their current production levels. That means they need to be on the acquisition to acquire ounces. And we've seen that when the majors, the big producers, want to purchase a company, they're willing to pay up for it and pay a significant price for it. I give the example that in 2022, Kinross Gold Corporation acquired Great Bear Resources and their Dixie project in Red Lake in Ontario. They paid $1.4 billion for this project, and it was at a pre-resource stage. So even before the exploration company was able to define a resource in the project, Kinross was willing to pay $1.4 billion. And shortly after acquiring it, Kinross did announce a maiden resource, approximately 5 million ounces. So if you do quick math, if they paid 1.4 billion to get 5 million ounces, you can see that in that example, and that is not indicative of all examples, but that one example shows that the majors, when they want an asset, they'll go after it and they're willing to pay up for it and pay a significant premium.
Yeah, exactly. And there's been a quiet market for mergers and acquisitions for 12 years, but when it picks up, if gold goes up after 2,000, 2,400, 3,000, I mean, the majors will have to pay whatever it takes for good quality projects. And that's why the gold optionality plays really well when you are drawing at $2 per resource.
Well, exactly. And I think we're starting to see that uptick in M&A activity now. Yeah. That example I gave was from 2022, but earlier in 2023, we saw B2 Gold acquire Sabina Resources and their project in Nunavut in northern Canada. They paid a significant premium for that project. And more recently, we've seen Marathon Gold with an advanced project in Newfoundland and eastern Canada that has been acquired as well by Calibre Resources. So we're starting to see M&A activity, and that really is indication that the producers don't have sufficient projects in their pipeline to meet current production levels going forward.
Well, that's a great benchmark for investors, for retail investors to look at and learn more about it. Now we are going to talk, let's move on and talk about De La Mina, the Colombian district, and maybe podemos empezar, si Alastair nos deja hablar un poco en español, con María, que ha venido desde Colombia a hablarnos de no este proyecto, son 3 proyectos diferentes lo que son. Entonces, María, cuál ha sido un poco tu experiencia, tu background en los últimos años y la posición que tienes ahora en Gold Mining Inc? ¿Y qué nos puedes contar de este distrito en Colombia? ¿Estás muteada?
Gracias, claro que
Ahora.
sí. Bueno, hace 13 años estoy trabajando en Colombia en activos mineros y con Gold Mining estoy desde el 2016 trabajando los 3 proyectos que son el de Titiribí, La Mina y Yarumalito. Son 3 proyectos que tiene la compañía en Colombia. Y específicamente La Mina es un proyecto, digamos que logramos obtener éxito en cuanto a la campaña de exploración que hicimos el año pasado,
Ujú,
de los cuales a principios del 2023 pudimos publicar el estimado de recursos para ese proyecto solamente. em, Después de haber hecho una campaña en 2022 que fue bastante, como te digo, exitosa en el sentido no solamente de que logramos hacer el descubrimiento como tal de este nuevo depósito, pero también porque tuvimos mucho éxito en toda la parte preliminar de em, relaciones comunitarias y digamos que de lograr esa licencia social tan necesaria para poder lograr avanzar en los tiempos que necesitábamos. Como lo estaban discutiendo ahorita, un costo total del descubrimiento, de la exploración para ese descubrimiento, más o menos estamos hablando de lo que estaban hablando, unos $2 por oro equivalente por onza, lo cual lo hace mucho más atractivo, dado la eficiencia que pudimos obtener en toda la exploración por parte del equipo que es todo colombiano y que obviamente dirigido por Alastair y Tim desde Canadá, que son la alta gerencia. Y estamos viendo en Colombia que hay otros proyectos que también dentro de la misma distrito en el que estamos nosotros, que es el Cauca Medio,
ujú.
hay otras compañías que también están logrando hacer avances en sus proyectos y lo vemos muy, muy importante y es una muy buena como medida de lo que está pasando, digamos que con nuestros proyectos y en Colombia en general. Hay compañías que, digamos que haciendo un correcto trabajo con las comunidades, con todos los stakeholders en campo,
Ujú.
pues han podido avanzar exitosamente sus proyectos también. Está el caso de Aris, de Denario y de otros muchos que están, digamos que avanzando en sus exploraciones durante todo el 2023.
Sí, porque tengo entendido, ¿no? Que Colombia está siendo, y lo comentamos un poco antes de la llamada, ¿no? También empresas grandes entrando en Colombia a esa búsqueda y producción de oro. ¿Qué dirías que es, hablando de la mina Titiribi, cuál es la característica igual tienen estos proyectos? ¿Vais a seguir expandiendo estos recursos? Porque habéis puesto un un PA súper exitoso. No sé si puedes hablar un poco del valor, no sé, creo que eran 300 o 400 millones de valor presente neto, que es una locura comparado con 50 millones que cotiza la acción en Enterprise Value. ¿Puedes hablar un poco de la expansión de recursos o qué plan tenéis con este distrito? ¿Hacer 3 minas diferentes? ¿Todo va a ser un distrito para una única empresa? ¿Nos puedes dar un poquito más de detalles?
Bueno, los 3 proyectos son independientes.
Ujú,
La mina particularmente tiene 2 áreas, 2 depósitos que están muy cerca, entonces allí sí sería, como está dicho en el PA, son 2 áreas de explotación con un centro para procesamiento. Y Titiribí es un proyecto que es, digamos que es independiente, que están separados, pero
ujú,
para ambos proyectos nuestra intención es poder seguir trabajando, seguir explorando para avanzarlos más en cuanto a los recursos que hoy ya tenemos medidos y así poder hacerlos más robustos, ambos.
Vale, es decir, vale. Es decir, vais a seguir trabajando en ello y tenéis un poco todas las opciones todavía abiertas, ¿no? A lo que va a poder venir. Muy bien, visto desde aquí, desde
Sí.
fuera, parece un gran proyecto o varios proyectos grandes que, bueno, que al fin y al cabo, y esto obviamente no se puede contar, pero no sabemos si hay empresas ya mirándolo con buenos ojos, ¿no? El pie y diciendo, oye, esto puede ser interesante, vamos a visitarlo, ¿no? Así que,
Así
nada,
es.
¿algo más que quieras añadir o pasamos con Alastair a ver a Brasil?
Yo creo que podemos pasar a Brasil y si tienes alguna pregunta adicional, con muchísimo gusto, más adelante la podemos trabajar.
Claro, perfecto, María. Muchas gracias por la aportación. Y bueno, en español, pues siempre se agradece. Alistair, coming to you, maybe you have understood us a little bit. We move to Brazil, maybe. This was the creation pretty much of the company back in the day of Brazil Resources. What can you tell us about this? Because a lot of movement is happening right now in that part of the world. Any plans to drill? Because you put a press release on that.
Yeah, no, that's a great segue, and thanks, Maria, for just walking through our projects in Colombia. And I certainly commend Maria and the team for their excellent work with not only the exploration but very strong stakeholder engagement and working with the local communities to have success and allow our projects to continue. To me, that's a key core competency of our team, is engaging with local stakeholders. We have a strong sustainability program. We've just released our first ever sustainability report. It's on our website. I encourage people to look at that. We have within the last short while added a VP of sustainability to our team to guide our efforts and make sure we're performing to the highest standards possible. But that is a good segue from Maria to go to Brazil. And I'm glad you mentioned that it is the foundation of the company, because that is how we started with our projects in Brazil. And we have our president, Paulo Pereira, who's based in Brasilia, a very experienced geologist who has been for some time now waiting for the right opportunity to advance our projects. And we've been working closely with Paulo, and some of your viewers may have noticed we did have a press release out within the last few weeks about our San Jorge project in particular in Pará state. This is a project we're very excited about. We've been doing some work to understand the geology better. We've been collecting stream sediment samples and geochemical samples, as well as doing some additions to the geological model to get a better understanding of it. We're quite excited by the prospect of targets. We see a large soil anomaly, geochemical anomaly now that's measuring some 12 by 7 kilometers. We're not saying there's a deposit that big, but when you see a expression of a signature on a geochemical scale of that large, that's certainly a very positive sign. It indicates to us that the resources that we currently have at San Jorge are likely not the only resources to be found on the project. There are likely to be other targets to find and to explore, and that's what we've announced. And we've started to do some additional work. And in the new year, we'll add some details to that plan. But our likely path forward is to move forward with a drilling program. We look to have details of that in the new year. And this is a district that is not just excited about our project, but we're encouraged by some of the key activities that are taking place along what we think is a growing regional trend. There's a trend now extending for some 200 kilometers from our project in the southeast up to the northwest through some significant producers and projects in development. Sarabi have a Palito mine, which is a matter of 20, 30 kilometers away from us. Further along that trend, we have G Mining building the Tocantins project. That's a major project that received an investment from one of the world's largest royalty companies. Franco-Nevada invested some $350 million into that project to see it being built. And the G Mining is well advanced with that construction. And if you go even further along strike to the northwest along this growing trend, Comprar and their Cuyo project have had tremendous exploration success in their recent announcements. So San Jorge is very central to a growing trend. What I think separates our project from the rest, though, is the infrastructure. We're actually located less than 2 kilometers from the major state paved highway. So easy road access into the project. Some of the projects in the district are quite deep into the forest or the jungle. They have river crossing, barge crossings, and need airplane access. We're fortunate that we're right beside the major highway. That gives great access. We have a small exploration camp at site, which is now functional. So we're ready and have a team in place to do the work. An additional advantage as we look forward to development options is the new power line that's been put in place by G Mining for Tocantinzinho. Follows that same highway, so it goes right across our corner of our property. So easy access to power combined with the road access and a tremendous exploration opportunity has us really quite excited about San Jorge and looking forward to providing more updates on that, specifics of a program into the new year.
Yeah, it's always great when other people's money comes to your infrastructure and you already have some infrastructure put in place. In the website, in the presentation, you can see some pictures about that. So yeah, this is a lot of projects that you have in Brazil, a great team put in place. So well, let's see what do you have for there. Maybe we can move. We could talk a little bit of Lamina, the PA, a lot of net present value to add. South George, those two projects, I think that's worth more than the 50 million that we started talking about. Maybe we can talk a little bit about uranium. And this is funny because yesterday we had in the program Scott Belby, that you probably know, the CEO of Uranium Realty Corp. So the listeners already know that uranium prices are getting a lot of attention right now. It's going high, and you have 200,000 hectares of land package there. Maybe we can talk a little bit because you put a press release, and I like your words that you said, look, no one knows that we have, almost no one knows that we have this project. Maybe we can talk a little bit about that and the plans that you have moving forward.
Absolutely, and you're quite right. We did announce recently that we're advancing forward our Rhea uranium project, which is a secret that seems that not many people knew about. We've had this asset since 2013, and it's kind of ironic that our company is called Gold Mining Inc., and we're trying to tell people that we have a uranium project. But in fact, we do. It's in the Western Athabasca Basin in Alberta, Canada. And the Athabascan Basin is a major structure that crosses between Alberta and Saskatchewan, and it produces some 15% of the world's uranium. And it also has some of the highest grade uranium deposits on the planet, averaging some 10 to 20 times the global uranium average. So it's a great jurisdiction to be in. Our property, Rhea, has 125,000 hectares. And you might think, well, that sounds like a big area. And recently I was traveling and I gave someone the equivalent. That's about 20 times the size of Manhattan Island in New York for scale, if people have been to see the size of Manhattan. So it's a very large area. We have acquired that in 2013 from an earlier acquisition of Brazilian gold. And I would point out that when we acquired this asset, it was at a time before some of the significant discoveries that we've seen recently in the Patterson Lake area. We've seen NextGen and Fission Uranium making significant discoveries. There's the Arrow deposit and the Triple R, and those are only about 60 kilometers away from us. And since then, there's been a tremendous staking rush. Much of the Athabascan Basin has been staked up. But I would point out that we were there, almost a decade before a lot of people. So we were able to come in and get some good ground. It hasn't been the focus for our company, probably for the simple reason that our name says it all. Gold Mining Inc. It's tough for us to focus on a uranium project, but really doing our homework and putting in our geological background on this, we saw it really as too much of an opportunity to ignore much longer. And we wanted to daylight the project, bring it to the market's attention, and start to compile some significant work. And we'll have more plans in the new year as we announce our exploration activities for probably a 1 or 2 year program to move the project forward.
Okay, yeah. I see. I here in my notes see that the project contains 2 prominent uranium targets for follow-up explorations. I mean, I'm not a geologist. You both are. Is it the same to explore for uranium than gold? Can you do it yourselves, or are you going to do a joint venture, or are you? What's the plan there?
Well, first of all, uranium and gold are different elements and they have different signatures, but some of the fundamental concepts of how they occur, why they occur, are common, and some of the techniques to explore for each are common as well. So geophysical and looking for conductors, looking for signatures of certain rock types and certain features, that's the same approach we would take with gold and uranium, with different nuances for each element. The fortunate thing for us is that we have the ability to access resources to augment our team to help us work with this. And one of the most important things, of course, is, and as we heard from Maria earlier, how important it is to have a local team conducting stakeholder engagement and managing projects. We'll do the same in Alberta. We're already talking to groups that can help us with our stakeholder engagement. If we need to add geological support to the team, particularly experts in uranium, we'll do so. We have consultants who are doing some work for us now to assist us. So I think the nice thing about Gold Mining Inc. is we have the financial strength to do the work ourselves, or if we need to hire consultants and contractors, we can certainly do that. But we have the technical expertise and experience to manage and guide those programs, and particularly with our VP Exploration, Tim Smith, who's seen a lot of projects globally and knows the approaches we'll need to take for that.
Yeah, I mean, great project. This is a great land package, and it's funny enough when you see the picture of all the projects in Athabasca Basin. It says gold mining. It's all blah 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 uranium, blah 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 uranium, and then you have the biggest, almost the biggest land package there. And it's, for me, it's hard to understand how to value it, because it's not like any comparable season or something. So we'll stay tuned and see what.
Exactly, and you're absolutely right. There's a lot of uranium companies exploring in the district. A lot of them have smaller land packages than we have and have significant market caps on just one project. So the fact that we have a large land package in a good jurisdiction, I would point out that we have a very significant joint venture partner on the project as well, Orano. Orano is the 3rd largest uranium company in the world, so it's a significant partner. And in the central part of our claim block, and we have completely surrounding it, Orano have the Dragon Lake deposit, which follows the Maybell River shear zone. And we believe that Maybell River shear zone extends across a greater extent of our property. And the second target occurs when this gets a bit geological, but the structure that following seems to be, from our geophysical interpretation, have a folded or potential repeat. So when that happens, we can see that same structure occurring and have maybe multiple occurrences along a extended strike length, or folded to occur with a repeat or a reoccurrence of a similar type mineralization. That's what we'll be testing, those 2 targets, as an extension of the shear zone and potential folded or repetitions of that host rock.
Okay, well, that's why I'm investor on Gold Mining Inc. I believe a strong balance sheet, right? Marketable securities like Gold Realty Corp, US Gold Mining, Nef Gold. All the other projects are worth 50 million. And well, you take the optionality that if these projects move along, go up in price, you are going to benefit. Gold Mining Inc. shareholders are going to benefit. And then you have all these projects that we have talked about, the Rio Uranium Project, La Mina, South George in Brazil, and these are district projects. And maybe to finalize our conversation, I don't know if you want to touch a little bit about Yellowknife, or is it core to you, or
Yellowknife is a project that is in Canada. It's an important gold district. It's a project we're still working on to prioritize and generate some targets. But I would say that the previous operators or owners of the project had taken the project to a feasibility study in the past and spent some $60 million in the project. We acquired it at a downturn in the cycle a few years ago. So we're still going through and compiling some opportunities or some scenarios for exploration. But as we've highlighted throughout the call, there's a tremendous optionality within our portfolio. We have to be focused and dedicated and select the projects which we think will have the greatest return for our shareholders, while we continue to advance maybe at a slower pace some of the other projects ready for their next term. What we don't want to do is spread ourselves too thin across too many projects. So we're going to stay focused on core projects. We've prioritized those, we've ranked those. Those are the ones we see the best near-term opportunities. Those are the ones we're focusing on right now. So as we've talked about, such as La Mina or San Jorge or our Rea uranium project as well.
Well, that's great to finalize. I don't know if you want to give the investors, possible investors or gold enthusiasts, any final thoughts, both of you?
Well, I would say we're very encouraged by the price of gold. I think it could be a pivotal year going forward. I think there's a fundamental disconnect from the price we see right now and the gold equities. If that disconnect starts to shrink and the gap closes, there's a potential for significant opportunity in the industry and the gold equities. That's going to be very positive for our shareholders. We have a number of key catalysts coming up. We've announced plans to advance our Rea uranium project in Canada, advanced plans on our San Jorge project in Brazil, and because we're an 80% stakeholder in US Gold Mining Inc., we're waiting on assay results from the Whistler project, which we are likely to see in the new year, and that could be an important catalyst for that significant investment we have in US Gold Mining Inc. as well.
Great. Well, thank you both for coming. Maybe New Year's we can have you both again into the show and give updates. So thank you both for coming to the show. And gracias, María, por poder haber hablado en español. Un saludo para todos los que están escuchando.
Un abrazo, muchas gracias a ustedes. Feliz Navidad.